I'm interested because so like I guess to give you a little bit of background, John and I we are from West Virginia. Originally, we grew up in Parkersburg. Um, our podcast focuses on Appalachia as a whole, and we talk a lot about labor issues in general and unions. I'm from a union family. My dad was a USW steel worker for over 35 years. My mom was a member of the AFT. So unions are something that's really important to me, and the history behind it in West Virginia, especially. And I'm kind of curious to start here. The Battle of Blair Mountain was 100 years ago, but it feels like the issues that they were facing, the miners were facing back then, are still relevant today. And I'm kind of curious if you think the same thing, and just kind of what your thoughts are on all that.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think uh, I think we're supposed to learn from our mistakes, or at least learn from our history. And it seems like we've uh, kind of went back in time, and uh, even before the FDR programs, and I think we're going to pay a price for it. We are paying a price for it now. But yeah, it's. I like to, the baby boomer generation, which I'm from. I'm 69-year old, and we had a lot of good stuff handed to us that came from, uh, what some say is the greatest generation. Unions, benefits, pensions, health care, things that we took for granted that are now being taken away. And the sad thing about it is a lot of people who are helping take these away is my generation. People who are drawing these benefits, people who have benefited from what the greatest generation give us, and now we're actually voting for people who would keep our kids and our grandkids from having those things.
Yeah, you make a great point. And something that I've noticed, especially, is just unions in general. It seems like there's been a huge decline over the years. Have you seen that? Because I know that you mentioned when we talked yesterday, you're a retired miner, but still pretty active with the United Mine Workers. Do you, how have things changed since when you were still active in the mines as far as unions go?
Well, I worked 26 year underground. Worked in union mines. Worked a little bit in non-union when I had to. I didn't like it, and but I think we just we've had a whole generation that has skipped what unions stood for and fought for, and were union. And I think we're just now beginning to realize that uh, what these people have lost, because these people, some of them now are nearing retirement age yourself, that didn't work in union mines. And I know some of them, just like in a small town where we're from in Maitland, you know about everyone. And we know a lot of the guys that ran through picket lines back in '84 during the Massey strike.
Hmm.
And you can see some of those guys now, the ones that are alive yet. And it seems like they're mad at us for those benefits that we now have, our pensions and our health care. Like jealousy, like they say, is crueler than the grave. And
Right.
now some of the ones that are still alive are seeing how they really screwed up. Our local in Matewan at one time was the largest local in UMWA, and we're still a huge local, local 1440. Very active local, all retired men, but very active on the political scene. We're very active in the town. We just replaced the mayor and all the town council because we couldn't work very well with the ones we had. So we actively campaigned, and we've got a new town council and a new mayor in this little town. So, action has to start on a level like that. We're like a lot of coal towns. One is that are dried up. If you went, had been in southern West Virginia, in McDowell or Logan, Wyoming counties, these little coal towns that were once booming little places are now ghost towns. But One is, it's kind of took on a different face. Like Of course, the Hatfield-McCoy Trail system is there, and we get a lot of those riders and stuff to stay there. And then we have a lot of history in the area. It's an area where the Hatfield-McCoy feud took place. It's the area where the Battle of Matewan took place. So, we get a lot of those people who come, are interested in history. They're interested in riding the trails. Hardly any mining jobs there anymore. They actually tore the railroad out that went up Nape Creek that had been in there for 100 years this summer. So, a lot of people were shocked when they seen them tearing this railroad out, but we wasn't shocked. Our local wasn't shocked. We know that basically what happened in our area is all the good coal's been mined out, and what we say is capitalism kind of turned on us,
Yeah. That's something that we hear a lot, because a lot of those small towns, like you mentioned, they were coal mining towns, and when the mine when the coal's been mined, there's not much else there for the people, and so you have a problem on your hands of what can you really do. And so I think one thing interesting you mentioned was about sort of like the history, and how like today people maybe aren't as well versed in like unions in general and what they provide. And you cited a really good example of the people who, I think you mentioned, cross the picket line, are now jealous of the benefits that you have. I'm wondering, is that something that you say you're active in UMWA now? I mean, do you notice that there's just like a lack of information about unions, or that people are more or less interested in them, or there's a lack of interest? I'm kind of curious what you see today.
I think the interest is there. I think, to me, one of the biggest things that I think that is wrong with people today is where they get their news from. Where what media they're watching. There's so much misinformation out there that it's hard to talk to somebody, about issues. And I think it's worse than when it was. Well, when I grew up, I know it's worse now, simply because there's so much more places to get information from, to actually get false information from. So unions, I've heard, the bashing of unions by people who know nothing about unions, who never have belonged to a union, and or who are listening to people that would sort of would think that that the union is your enemy. Is what keeps people from having a job, when that's the farthest thing from the truth. We always tell everybody, and I know you've heard it 1,000 times, that if you don't belong to a union, you don't even have a seat at the table, and more than likely, you're on the menu there. So we try to get that message out, and like I say, Matewan is a strong union town, but it's also a town that I know that y'all probably know that is Don Blankenship's hometown.
Yep.
Matter of fact, we went to school. I went to school with Don Blankenship. So we know, and we've been through these fights, and we know who our friends are, and we know who our enemies are. And the friends of coal people are definitely not our friends. We know that.
No kidding. Yeah, well, I just actually mentioned to John earlier about Don Blankenship, because it's interesting you went to school with him. Like, he's one of the most notoriously union busting people probably in the history of the state. So it's interesting that you have those two dynamics there. And honestly, in my opinion, is just one of the more awful people for how he treated his miners. And you could see just, with the mines that he operated at Massey when it was still around, just how much union busting was actually happening.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of pain in this from the '84 strike. The '84 strike with Massey didn't go as well as what the Pittston strike did. And I think the union probably learned from its mistakes that they made in the Massey strike. And so the Pittston strike actually went better, but yeah, but it's a town full of, and a lot of the people in the town are still anti-union. We live amongst some of the guys that ran through picket lines. Um, and they still a lot of hard feelings, and at times, even on Facebook, you get on Facebook where you can really look at somebody's mind at times. I know a lot of people don't like to get on there, but you can really uh, figure a person out on Facebook at times, how they stand on issues and how they still feel about things that happened in the past.
Is that where you think a lot of the information's coming from? Is that where do you see a lot of stuff like I know where you are is a smaller town. Everybody kind of knows everybody. Do you see a lot of things on social media now?
Absolutely. I mean, and it and as far as I'm concerned, probably 75% of it is anti-union in our area. Even though we probably Mingo County probably has, if I was guessing, over 2,000 retired union miners that are drawing union benefits. But yet, when Manchin was trying to get our, and I'm not a Manchin man, but I don't think I would have my health care and my pension right now if it wasn't for him. But he got beat in Mingo County by over 2,000 votes by Patrick Morrissey. And these were union families that were voting against the Democrat Party while they were actually fighting for our pensions. So that's the type of people that you're trying to deal with, that their own dad's health care or pension was in jeopardy, and you vote for the other guy. So, yeah, we've got a lot of misinformation and a lot of teaching or whatever you would call it that we got to do in these areas.
I'm a little interested because something you just said kind of intrigued me. You said that you're not a Manchin guy, which I don't hear a lot of people down. I live in Parkersburg, and so I don't hear a lot of union people say that they're not a Manchin type person. Is there something that sticks out to you? You don't have to answer it, but it just stuck out to me.
Well, I know what happened to Charlotte Pritt, years ago. And we went down that road, and I think it pretty well destroyed the Democrat Party, at least the progressive people that were Democrats in West Virginia. I say that, and I say I don't like a lot of these votes on issues, a lot of these things he's doing right now. I think he could really help West Virginia right now. And maybe he will. One thing that I'd like to see him help us on right now is the black lung law. And it's not getting the funding back for black lung because we have people that, in my opinion, are just trying to get funding back for black lung, and to get a system that was actually broken reinstated. I think what we ought to do on the black lung thing, we have a 15-year presumption clause in this black lung bill that if you work 15-year underground, that it should be presumed that you have black lung, and go ahead and reward these guys that have that in there, And I think Manchin could do that right now if he wanted to, because I think they're going to pour a lot of money into some of these old coal regions, and I think they're going to give it to the same politicians that created the problem. So if you've got a problem and you're going to pour money into the area, why would you give it to the very people that created the problem to start with, which is the Friends of Coal people in these areas? The politicians are owned by them. They always have been, whether they had a D after their name or R. It just didn't make any difference.
No, I get that. So I guess one thing that I'm wondering, so you're there, you're on the ground there, you see it every day. Your town is kind of grouped into all the other towns where it's like, former coal towns, like, just essentially what people call like a drive-through town, like you're just driving through, right? What brings those towns back? Like what are you all trying to do? Because it's coal is probably not the answer. So what's the answer that you all think could help you all down there?
Well, what's helping us right now is, like I say, the trail system, the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System is helping.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a museum in town, the Mine Wars Museum that just went in there, and that's helping because it's bringing different people too. It's bringing people that there's a little bit of difference in people who ride trails and people who are interested in going to a museum or who are interested in history. So we get a lot of these people that are in there. We have a lot of lodging that's going on in these towns. We have 3 restaurants that that have opened up in this town. Even the Union, we do something a lot of the UMWA doesn't do, and that is that we own, I think it's about 15 rental properties that we rent out to mostly low income people.
Terry, are you still there?
Jobs ourselves,
Oh, okay.
and we're always going to restore some of the buildings that needs to be restored in this town. So they have people that's getting ready. They're supposed to start this month. I don't know if they've got started yet or not, but they're going to restore some of the old historic buildings in Mate 1 and turn them into one of the things they want to do is make a training center in there, and they're open to ideas on what we should be doing to try to teach people to do something, of course, it's one thing to teach somebody to do something, and it's actually something else that actually, if they have the means to do it with.
That makes sense. No, it's good to hear that y'all are growing, as much as you can down there.
Yeah, it's a different, if anybody had been to Mate 1 10 years ago and would come there now, they can see a difference in the town, because we were like a lot of the other towns, Welch, Kimball, a lot of the other little Jaeger towns that were just completely dying, and now we're actually growing. The town is. Of course, they still need jobs.
That's a problem. That's definitely a problem.
And one of the things I always tell people too, and it's something that I don't know. I guess it's just life in general that most of the people who are able to build cabins to rent out to other people, or who have the means to to build something where they can make money, are the people that already have money. So we need to put money in the hands of people that don't have money, and that's kind of hard to do in these areas.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about what's happening in Mate 1 is good, and it's good to see that there's things happening that can help the town transition beyond coal. But jobs is a big thing. Is there, is that a thing that's being discussed by UMWA where they're trying to kind of plan for the future around that?
Well, yeah, what I would like to see, I don't know. I don't make decisions for the UMWA. I try to influence people that do make decisions. I'd like to see this like in the clean energy, the green energy jobs that are coming here, that these jobs need to be union jobs, because if they're not union jobs and they're not given to people in these areas, how are you going to get the people to realize that this is what it would take to restore an area back and to restore it back better, because coal, anybody that's worked in coal knows that it's hard on the people, it's hard on the area where they live, it's hard on the environment, and these areas have suffered enough. So that, I think it'd be a great argument, for somebody like Manchin and even the union to make in these areas that these green jobs, whatever they're going to be, and I don't have any clue or idea what they are. I don't know how to make a wind turbine or a solar panel or what it takes to make these. But I think these areas is where they need to make them at, because these are the people that have suffered, and I think we have the people there that could do it if they were trained.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's definitely going to be the future, whether politicians embrace it or not. And I definitely think they should. Well, Terry, thanks so much for joining us and talking to us today. I really appreciate hearing from you and your perspective with where you are and your background and the union movement in general. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to, join and get to join you tonight. Enjoy what you're doing. I've watched some of your podcasts and enjoy some of the work with some of the things that you're doing. So glad to help when I can.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. Well, thank you. And we'll talk soon. I appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Terry.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.